The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games. Check out all their awesome games at playtmg.com.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes celebrate Feld-mas. They review Stefan Feld's Oracle of Delphi and look back at their review of AquaSphere in their Dukes Double-Take. And finally, they talk about protecting their game collections. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody! Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
What?
I could go longer.
Okay, you can go longer. This is episode 123, Magic 123.
Yep.
Which is a child-rearing book. 123 Magic?
Cool.
No? Okay, anyway.
Yep.
Episode 123, Holy Diver.
Holy Diver!
Wait, can we let someone else sing that?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, this was named by our buddy Matthew Ward, who came up with this. It makes a lot of sense. Right? Because you got Christmas, you've got Oracles, that's that holy, and then we're talking about AquaSphere and Oracle of Delphi, another, water, ocean-based game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to work in Ronnie James Dio.
Yes.
So, pretty epic.
Yes, indeed. So congrats to Matthew for naming episode 123 Holy Diver.
What kind of games will we have to talk about to get Rainbow in the Dark as an episode title?
I don't know. Maybe My Little Pony? Friendship is Magic, the CCG, I
But
guess?
in the dark, what's the dark? Tyrants of the Underdark?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Okay, so it's a dual review episode with those two games.
Hey, in case you're wondering why we name our episodes with help from other people, it's because over on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, every week people help out with episode titles, with discussing review games, on-deck stuff, all that stuff. So go check that out if you get a chance. And actually, we're almost at a milestone, Alex. We almost have 600 members on our Board Game Geek Guild.
Fantastic.
I remember when we had 14, I was like, oh my goodness, we have 14.
And now we have a lot more than that.
Yes, that's how math works.
Indeed.
But so if you have not joined our guild, we'd love it if you would come over there and participate and click subscribe, click join, all that good stuff. That would be pretty sweet.
Also, give us some reviews on iTunes, because that's how other people find the show, and we like that.
It sure is. So here's the thing. I'm just going to ask some of you out there who don't use iTunes. Ready for this? I need you to take one for the Duchy. If you don't use iTunes, if you just want to download iTunes just so that you can go leave us a review and then uninstall iTunes, that's totally cool.
Man, that sounds like a lot of work for a podcast.
It is. That's what I'm saying. Take one for the Duchy. That's all. If you don't want to do that, don't do that.
If you don't want to do that, I completely understand. I totally wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't do that.
I would not do that.
Yes. I'll leave that one alone.
Okay.
I'll leave that one absolutely alone. And hey, we have a contest winner. We were doing a contest for a giveaway of a recent review, The Blood of an Englishman, from our friends over at Renegade Game Studios. This is an awesome two-player game that both of us liked quite a bit. One of you is Jack, one of you is the Giant, and Jack's trying to run up the beanstalk and get the three treasures. But we did a random giveaway. So we did a random giveaway through Twitter and Facebook, but we also said that if you want some extra entries, you could email to us your best fee, fi, fo, fum. So, of course, this was just a little extra work, and we only had a handful of people that signed on, but I'll just share a couple of them with us, and then we'll announce the contest winner. Sound good, Alex?
Sounds good.
All right, this one's from our buddy Cameron Gibson, plays with us over at Empire Board Game Library. Not your typical fee-fi-fo-fum, but let's give it a listen.
Fee-fi-fo-fum.
Brought to you by Gollum as well, apparently.
Yeah. And then our buddy Daniel Newman, game designer extraordinaire, Daniel Newman, brought us this one.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman.
That's pretty good. And a little cameo at the end there.
I like the end there. Like, it's like, what are you doing, Daddy?
Don't worry about it. Go away.
All right, and then this one, little throaty. Ready for this one, Alex?
Fee, fi, fi, fum.
Ooh, I'm scared. You scared?
That's a little creepy.
That was Jimmy Miro. So good job. So thanks to everyone who submitted those and everyone else participated. But we have our winner. Oh, wait. Whoops. We're recording early because it's Feld-mas weekend.
Yes.
And so on Feld-mas Eve, I wanted to spend it with my family, and you're going to be up in Santa Feld.
Santa Fe.
No, Santa Feld.
No, come on.
Yeah, it makes sense.
No.
Santa Feld, New Mexico, celebrating Feld-mas with your family. So we decided to record a couple days early on Thursday. And I said, hey, let's end the contest on Friday. But that's okay. Through the power of future shifting, time shifting, magic.
Sean's going to put the incorrect person's name here.
Congrats to Alexander Reith from Twitter, at chariot_rider42.
So congrats, so-and-so. You won. We'll have a copy of The Blood of an Englishman sent out to you. So congrats, and thanks everyone for participating. And of course, thanks to Renegade Games Studios for being so generous with that prize.
And then finally, we got some more help on Patreon, Sean.
Yeah, so if you don't know, we have a Patreon account. It is patreon.com/Dukes of Dice, where we have a lot of awesome, amazing people that are over there supporting the show, supporting the podcast through some financial contributions, and we really appreciate that. And we just want to highlight a brand new count level backer, Adam Borden. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate all the support of all of our amazing Patreon patrons. And again, if you would be so inclined to maybe go check it out, see if it's something you're able or willing to do, we'd really appreciate it. So, well, Alex, should we talk about some board games?
We sure should, because it is a board game podcast.
Sure is. So I'll go first. We like to have me go first during these, usually.
Well, and also you have more games to talk about for the first time in a long while.
Like 3 weeks. Back off
Yeah,
there.
that's a good chunk of time.
Back off there, Skip. All right, so Monday night was sort of an impromptu office holiday party because as we were leaving, my paralegal went out and her truck was broken into. So she said, all right, I'm going to call the cops. And another attorney and I were both like, well, we'll wait with you till the cop shows up because that kind of sucks. Her husband's out of town. And it's just a bummer. So we're like, yeah, we'll wait with you. And I called up Raquel and I said, Raquel, bring some board games, bring some adult beverages, and we'll just wait in style. We'll play board games and we'll have a couple drinks. So neither of the other attorney or the paralegal are gamers in any way, shape, or form. And while we were waiting, it's funny to just think about, while we were waiting for Raquel, I said, hey, I have Codenames in my trunk, but not regular Codenames Deep Undercover. Remember I mentioned this last week? This is the adult adult-themed Codenames that's a Target exclusive that's been sitting in my trunk for weeks, months almost. And so basically it's a lot of like sexual and like drug references. And I kind of joked, hey, we probably need to have like a sexual harassment waiver signed before we play this. But they enjoyed it. So we wound up playing just the three of us.
She says weeks before the lawsuit's filed.
Yeah, I should probably not record any of this. This can all be used as evidence. But yeah, three of us. So like I was the spy master for both, and we did that for like 3 rounds, and then we switched off spy masters, and it was really cool. It was kind of funny. It's a little body. There was some body talk, and that was all right. But then Raquel showed up. We played with her as well. After that, now we can go out of the lawsuit arena. We did play Ice Cool, which is probably one of my new favorite dexterity games. I mean, I'm not a big fan of a lot of dexterity games, but I'm really enjoying this one. And both my coworkers caught on really quick. I won. I'm really good at this game, surprisingly. And I had a couple drinks by that point, so I was also doing, like my flicks were really bad. So you're a penguin and you're flicking around this cool little ice high school, and one of you is a hall monitor and you're trying to intercept the others, and the others are trying to go through certain doors to collect fish, and you can score points. Awesome game. And then finally, we busted out Broom Service, the card game, and I think I talked about this on our BGG episode. Have you played this yet, Alex?
I have not yet.
Oh, you're going to love this. So this takes Broom Service, which the main mechanic there, I mean, you're moving these witches around to pick up potions and deliver potions, but you're doing this through this card selection and card play where you play a certain type of card, everyone else who has that card has to follow, and as you play it, you're saying, I'm either a brave witch or a cowardly witch. If you're the brave witch, well, if you're the cowardly witch, you get a lesser version of the action, but it's guaranteed. If you're the brave witch, you're going to get a more powerful version of the action. But if someone after you declares that they're the brave witch, you lose out completely. So it's an interesting little push your luck a little bit, a little bluffing. It's a great game. But this distills all of that, all of the board play, moving your piece around, to just the playing cards, some set collection, and just the brave cowardly mechanic. Awesome game. And they caught on after the first round. The rules explanation was probably a little bit rough for these two non-gamers, but after the first round, they caught on pretty well. So that was kind of an interesting impromptu Feld-mas party that we had at the office.
Very cool. So Wednesday night, I ran a little late to the Dukes of Dice game night because Wednesday was also my last day as a TV news person.
Oh.
You could have done the George Michael Freedom one too. Would have worked.
Oh yeah, that would have worked too.
Yeah, that would have worked. I would have preferred that. because I don't know this one as well.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, a lot of goodbyes and some farewells and all sorts of fun stuff. And yeah, if you notice my Twitter handle, by the way, I changed it today from AlexG_reporter to AlexG_human.
Oh, boy.
And Sean was disappointed I didn't go with Jedi for the sub there. So
I mean, why not? If you're just making up Twitter handles, just, be a Jedi.
Go all in nerd. Yeah.
Ooh, or Sith. No, you want to be a Sith.
No, I'm not a Sith.
I could have Sean Ramirez Sith.
Yeah, that would probably work.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, so yeah, I showed up a little late, but I did get in a couple of games, and one of them I got in was Kingdomino, which has been much talked about in other circles. Neither of us had played this one yet.
No.
And this is quite good. What you're doing is you're trying to build a 5x5 grid using these domino pieces that have different terrain types on different sides. So it might be desert, it might be forest, it might be ocean, and you're trying to collect crowns to score those different areas. They sort of serve as multipliers as you add them to those spaces. And you build this 5x5 grid. The way you're building it, you are going to choose a tile, and then the order of those, they're kind of in potentially how good they are order.
Yeah.
You'll move over to another tile and then take the one you had bid on before and put it on your board, and then so on and so forth. It kind of goes back and forth, changing turn order and bid order.
Generally speaking, the more powerful tiles or the ones with more crowns are going to put you later in the turn order for the next round.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could be potentially troublesome in this game.
Sure.
But you're trying to fit things in, manage your space, do the best you can until the end of the game, and then you tally up points based on how many crowns you have, multiplied by certain areas, and whoever has the most points ends up winning. Very simple, very quick game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right up my alley. I like stuff that's simple rule set, but decent amount of depth, and this definitely fits the bill. I played this one with 4. My favorite moment of game night was we were all looking at your board during your 3-player game of this and criticizing Sean.
Oh, everyone was just giving me crap.
This looks just terrible, Sean. There's no way you're going to win with this board. This doesn't look any good. Little did we know that Matthew and Matt had even worse boards. So, yeah, Sean ended up winning, despite the fact that we were all talking crap about it.
With my giant forest.
Yeah.
My 9-space contiguous forest with 3 crowns.
It wasn't
Boom.
that big of a score, though. You get, what 31?
34.
Yeah, and I'd scored 45 the previous game and finished in 4th.
You don't have to score more than someone in another game.
That's true.
Players in your game, Alex.
It's true. So, Kingdomino, I may look to pick this one up. Bruno Cathal, one of the designers. I don't remember the other one.
Yeah, I'm blanking, but it's a blue-orange game.
Yes.
And very, very solid game. Very chunky tiles.
Oh, yeah.
Like very solid cardboard tiles. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. That's
myself.
Kingdomino.
All right, well, I got to play Villages of Valeria, and this was a recent Kickstarter fulfillment. Not for me, our buddy Matt over at Empire had just gotten this in. And this is in the world of Valeria. There was a prior Kickstarter, Valeria Card Kingdoms, which kind of had a Machi Koro feel to it. So this has nothing to do with that game whatsoever, other than it's just kind of a shared universe. And I kind of thought of this as a little bit of a mix between Race for the Galaxy and Glory to Rome. Two of my favorite games. I love both of those games quite a bit. It's not as good as either game, but it was still quite good. I liked it quite a bit. So what you're going to do is you're racing to build a tableau of 10 buildings, and they are worth some points. They're going to give you some additional abilities. And whoever has the most points at the end of that is going to be the winner. Now, on your turn, you're able to pick some actions. So you can build, you can collect resources or harvest resources. You can tax, which is going to let you draw some cards and get some money, which you'll need to trigger resources. And then when you take that action, everyone else has an opportunity to follow that action. So kind of like a secondary action in Race for the Galaxy or following in Glory to Rome, and it's just a lesser version of that action. And so I always like that. I always like when you're still doing stuff during another player's turn, so you're still engaged. And so you're trying to kind of tuck some cards to get different resources, but you can't just have the resources in these card forms. You also have to be able to spend the gold. There are these little gold tokens to activate those resources. So you have to take turns to get that gold. You can also recruit heroes. Heroes have a certain requirement of different symbols matching symbols on your building cards. And so there's lots of cool abilities that say, when you do a build action, draw an extra card. When you do a build action, you get a wild resource you don't have to spend gold on. And so lots of different things. So you're trying to maximize what you can do when you're taking advantage of, your action and also following someone else's action. And so I really like this style of game, and I thought this was really solid. Again, I don't think it's good as either of those two games I compared it to, but I thought it was still pretty good. And I'm going to look to pick up a copy. On Kickstarter, this was a $16 game or $17 game plus $2 shipping. here in the US, and a lot of value, I think, for that. So even if it's like a $25 MSRP, I would pick that up in a heartbeat. I thought it was really good. I'm really excited to play some more of this. And Dan, our buddy Dan, another attorney, he kicked our butts big time. He tends to do that, big jerk.
Yeah, he's good at games.
Yeah, he sure is. So that's Villages of Valeria from Daily Magic Games. Big recommendation for me. I think it was pretty solid.
Very cool. I got in a couple of plays of Glux. Now, I mentioned this during our BGG-Con episode, and I went and, oh man, Amazon had a huge discount on this game, so I picked it up, got it in my collection, and brought it with me in Empire.
Kind of weird for like a brand new game.
Huge discount on this thing.
I picked it up too, remember?
Yeah, I know. Crazy. I got this to the table twice with two very different groups. One was with a pair of people who were kind of showing up to game night for the first time, hadn't played a ton of games. I played this with them, 3-player. Really well received with that group.
Cool.
It's an easy rule set. It's easy to tell what you're doing. There was some confusion about how rooms scored, but other than that, it taught pretty well for that group, which I think is a pretty good sign.
Sure.
So that went pretty well. Then I tried it 4-player, my first 4-player play of this, with some more experienced gamers in our group, kind of as a nightcap towards the end of the evening. It plays pretty quickly. Two things. One, I like it probably best at 3.
Okay.
4 is still fine. I can't imagine liking it at 2. 3 is my sweet spot for this game.
Was it too hard at 4 to just kind of keep track of the rankings, because basically it's a majority control in these different rooms?
So it's not that so much as the board just gets too crowded too quickly.
Okay.
So it's harder to make as interesting of moves in a 4-player game versus a 3.
Sure.
But not so much different that I wouldn't play it at 4.
So my only concern with 3 versus 4 is that at 3, one person do they make some allowance for one person being in between two other players?
So what they do, how this works is that the board has 4 corners, and the board also has some rooms in between that can work. And so it sets it up with one person in each of the bottom corners, and then sort of like a triangle, the third player gets a box up kind of top middle. So the players are set up more like a triangle than anything. So it's not really a problem.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not really a problem at all. I think it actually handles that pretty well.
Okay, that's good to know.
So I will say the reaction I got with four players and with the more experienced gamers was, yeah, I liked it well enough, was sort of the reaction at the table. But a lot of them said they would strongly prefer Blocus over this.
Okay.
And I've not played Blocus.
Oh, you haven't played Blocus. Blocus is really solid. Do they have it at Empire? I think they do.
I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, it's really solid. I mean, I haven't played it in 10 years or more.
It's been around for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the comparison. I don't know how, since you've played it, Sean, I don't know how you think that comparison is.
Yeah, I think Blocus is probably a little bit better. I mean, it's different. I mean, they're multiplayer abstract games. But, I mean, this was, I like this well enough. I don't know that I'm going to keep my copy. Okay. And both Raquel and I really enjoyed it. We're like, yeah, this is really good. But as far as if we're going to do a 2-player abstract, we've got a ton of other stuff we'd rather play.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if I have 3, I don't know how likely I am to bring out an abstract like this.
It works pretty well for that player count, though.
Sure.
3 players is a tricky one.
Yeah.
Can be a tricky one.
I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of other games I'd probably pull out first before an abstract.
Yeah. I think you need to at least try it at 3 before.
Yeah.
Doing anything.
Sure.
Anyway, that's Glux.
All right, the last game I'm going to talk about was a recent acquisition at Board Game Geek Con. This is The Trial of Louis Riel. This is a Victory Point Games game designed by Alex Berry, another attorney. And I got to meet Alex at BGG Con. I went over to the Victory Point game booth, and they kind of had all their games set up for demos. And I was kind of looking over, and he's like, oh, I can show you how to play. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm cool. And then and he's like, oh, well, it's a game about trials. And I'm like, oh, yeah, interesting. Because usually when I hear that, I'm like, like whoever designed it probably doesn't know what they're doing. And it's not going to be that good. So he kind of started describing it to me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And then it came out, he's like, oh, well, I'm actually a criminal defense attorney. I'm like, oh, okay. Right there, that kind of sold me on it, because it sounded interesting enough, but to hear that he was an attorney that designed it, and, this is his area of expertise, I'm like, this is going to be interesting at least to try. So we kind of talked a little bit. And we also messaged a couple times back and forth on Board Game Geek in the last couple weeks. So I would pick up a copy because I'm like, yeah, I'll pick this up. And I got to play it on the other night with Raquel. It's a 2-player only game. One of you is the prosecution, the other one's the defense. I was the defense.
And you lost.
Yeah, well, can I tell the story?
Yeah.
You're like 5 steps ahead.
I can't believe you lost.
It's a game, Alex. Come
on, Sean.
It's not. I'll remind me of that. I'll tell you something real quick here in a little bit. So this is about a famous, I guess, a French-Canadian revolutionary in the 1800s, and he tried to rebel against the Canadian government, and he won, and then he escaped to the U.S., And then there was another uprising. He's like, oh, I'm going to come back. So he came back, and this time he failed, and he's put on trial. And so this has jury selection called voir dire, and then it has the case in chief, which is a 2-part thing. Then it has your summation, your closing arguments, and then there's a deliberation phase. So you spend the first phase of the game trying to find out information about these jury members, what language they speak, if they're English or French, if what occupation they are, if they're a farmer, a government worker, or a merchant, and then what religion they are, Protestant or Catholic, because certain types of jurors are going to lean more towards the defense or the prosecution. So, for example, I was the defense. I really wanted farming, Catholic, French. That was going to be the best, right? So I wanted to find out some information so you could peek at some of these random traits, or you can reveal them through certain card play. And that it's all card driven, right? So each card has something you can do with it during the voir dire phase, something during the trial in chief, and something in summation, or it just has a action point value that you could always spend it for. This was really cool. So you did the jurors, and then you take turns dismissing 3 jurors each, which you would do in an actual jury trial. And then you go into the actual case in chief, where you're playing these different witness cards and attorney cards that are putting influence on certain jurors, or putting influence on these 9 tracks, no, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks, which are those different traits I mentioned. So you're convincing all of the, French-speaking jurors that he's probably more guilty than not. And so you do that, then you do summation, which had some huge effects, basically some closing argument stuff. And then if you've managed to lock a particular juror, they have certain deliberation points, which you could then have them use to influence other juries when they're off in their deliberation, trying to decide if he's guilty or not guilty. Ultimately, you're adding up the value of each juror based on what traits they have and where those different tracks are. I lost. You need 100 points for a guilty conviction, and it was like 120 or so.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was.
You're a terrible lawyer.
This was really good. I really enjoyed this. This had a feel of, the kind of those 2-player tug-of-war games that are card-driven, kind of like Labyrinth or Twilight Struggle, but a much shorter, smaller scale. This was only about a 35, 40-minute card game, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And, this is a victory point game, so they kind of do, their production value isn't as good. It's like paper mats and laser cut components, but you know what you're getting. Like, you know what you're getting from victory point games, and I have several of their games, and I like it. So I like this game quite a bit. I'm excited to play more of this, hopefully win. So in real life, I had a hearing where I was representing someone, obviously, and the other side was unopposed, or not unopposed. The other side was not represented. They were pro se. And we lost the hearing. The case actually got dismissed, and they told us, you need to go refile it in this other jurisdiction. And my client, I'm like, okay, well, we knew this might happen. This is kind of a problem, but here's what we can do. And then my client's aunt was like, how come an attorney can get beaten by an unrepresented person? And I'm like,
ooh.
I'm like, yep, that just happens.
Sick bird.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of annoyed by that. But anyway.
Well, I would think so.
And here you are, just rubbing it in.
Digging it in. Yep.
Anyway, so that's the trial of Louis Riel from Victory Point Games, designed by Alex Berry. I enjoyed it a lot.
I need a Phoenix Wright game
to
come
you don't.
out. Phoenix Wright the board game. It's got to happen.
Okay.
Objection! On to the news. All right, first up in news, Treefrog Games has just one more title they're going to publish, A Handful of Stars. Pre-order is up for this one. Sean, what's the backstory here?
So Martin Wallace's company, Treefrog Games, has said, well, we're not going to really do publishing anymore. We're going to transfer over and just do design. And he had a statement back in November. He said, it's been a struggle to keep Treefrog Games going for the last few years. The games market has become increasingly crowded with new releases, and as a small company, we have found it difficult to compete. I've decided that it is better for me to focus on my core strength, which is game design, and leave matters of production and marketing to others. There will be plenty more Martin Wallace designs in the future. They will just lack the Treefrog logo, which I think is a good thing. I think he's a fantastic designer. His development is lacking, and you see that in rulebooks especially. His rulebooks are just a bear to get through, and there's a lot of uncertainty. You've seen that with that play of brass that you had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Right. Very, very frustrating. So this is a game in the same vein as A Few Acres of Snow or Mythotopia, where it's kind of card-driven and also deck building. And this is a sci-fi version of it. 7 different races in the galaxy that belong to the Voltaire arm, each of which was scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy due to the Great Cosmic Ripple. Now, that's who you're playing. Now, it's up to you to rebuild your empire to its former glory through building ships, researching new tech, and riding the waves of the Great Cosmic Ripple. They like that Great Cosmic Ripple a lot. Ripple's a weird word, too. So this is an initial print run of 2,500 games. You want to say something about Ripple, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to say something.
Okay.
Do you know where Ripple's not a weird word? In ice cream.
Okay.
If you have Ripple with ice cream, it just makes sense.
It's
anyway,
what? It's what?
If you have Ripple, like Fudge Ripple or something like that, it makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it works with ice cream.
Okay.
That's about it.
Cool. Anyway, initial...
And ponds.
Pogs?
Ponds.
Ponds.
Ponds. Sorry, I'm a little stumped out.
Ponds.
Ponds.
Okay.
All right, carry on.
Sure. So this is an initial print run of 2,500 games. However, once it's sold out, you might be able to get it because Fantasy Flight has bought the reprint rights, but there's not necessarily a commitment to actually reprint it. So who knows? And who knows if they're going to do additional development, if they're going to upgrade components or do anything with the rules. But just kind of interesting. I have one Treefrog game, I believe, which you played and you hated, Setting Emerald.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bad rule book. So yeah, this might be ready to ship in March 2017. That's what they're saying. I'm guessing not. Well, because Chinese New Year is coming up and production shuts down for like a month, assuming this is being manufactured in China. So anyway, that is something.
A handful of stars.
Yeah, so that's a handful of stars from Treefrog Games.
Next up, Level 99, our local friendly game publisher, is coming out with a couple of hot ones, both of which we have played, Sean.
Ooh, yeah, and we actually have them in the Duchy.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because you have all the stuff.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so 2 games, Anansi and Tomb Trader. And we talked about these at BGG-Con. Let's talk about Tomb Trader first. It's a little bit easier. It is a negotiation game, which I love, and it's also real-time negotiation. And there's a little bit of Diamante in there. And basically what you're doing is you are an adventurer that's going through these tombs, trying to find different artifacts, and you have a secret identity, which makes certain artifacts worth more to you than they would be for others. And so every turn, you're putting a certain number on the inside of the temple, a certain number on the outside of the temple. You all pick whether you're going inside or outside simultaneously, and then you split up in those groups, and among those groups, you have to negotiate who gets which treasure, and you can kind of sweeten the pot, like, oh, well, I'll take these 2, but I'll give you $1 here. If you don't come up with a deal after a minute, everyone loses everything there.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I think it's
solid.
awesome. I'm going to bring it to Empire in the next couple weeks. Really solid game. And then Anansi was a fantastic trick-taking game.
I loved how this one was pitched as like, this is a really easy, light family game. No, there's a good amount going on in this one.
Well, there's a couple different levels you could play at, right? And so there are these different suits, which are these different it's not animal types, it's traits, right? The traits are the types.
Like brave and cowardly. And
It's not broom service.
I just have broom service stuck in my head. That's about, it's probably not those, but you get the idea.
And so it's a fairly typical trick-taking game with, you have trump cards that can be played on top of a particular suit. But what makes this really interesting is that at the start of each round, you are picking a totem animal and another particular trait ability, which gives you some sort of special power for that round. And that's really cool. Plus, there's another variant, which we haven't played, but I'm very excited to play, which is a little bit similar to Diamonds, where if you follow with an off-suit card, because you don't have that suit, then there's a suit ability that you get to use. I'm very excited for that. So both really solid games. I really enjoy both of these. And those are going to be available sometime in January of 2017. So go check that out. And we'll probably be talking about more on the show. Or the tentative plan is to step up some video production. So we may see some smaller games that we don't usually do like featured reviews on, get some video treatment.
Dukel we.
Yes.
Because I'm leaving the country.
You're leaving the country.
Yes.
I'm gonna chain Mariah to a video editing computer and go from there.
Good luck. Have fun.
Okay.
That's about it. Anyway, next up, and I don't know how to pronounce this one, Sean. I heard the video and I sort of forgive me if I get this one wrong. On Kickstarter, it's Quodd Heroes.
Yeah, I think I heard Quodd.
Something like that. This is from Wonderment Games.
Quodd.
Yes.
If you want to look it up on Kickstarter.
Yes, indeed. And $56 approximately for base. It's Canadian dollars, so they translate it over.
Yeah, 56 US.
75 US for deluxe. It's described as platform video game meets tabletop miniatures game in a completely original tabletop board game experience like nothing you've ever seen or played. Take on the role of an astounding cube-shaped character that moves by tumbling. and has a different skill assigned to each face of its cube-shaped body. Then mix in incredible ability upgrades, a fantastic array of power-ups, devices, pets, and ancient powerful runes. Finally, choose one of the many different scenarios to set up your adventure, and you're ready for action and mayhem in the beautiful, dangerous, and unpredictable world of Quodd. That's the description, Sean. You checked this one out, though.
I did. I watched the how to play video, and okay, let me say this. When I first saw this in the show notes, I'm like, oh, there goes Alex again, picking another one of his obscure, weird...
You don't want to see the alternate one.
I probably don't. And so I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this looks pretty cool. The art was really good. And then the gameplay video was not great. There was like a lot of shadows and stuff, but the gameplay looked pretty cool. So it's a grid, a different map grid with different terrain types. And when you start a move, you have to tumble, which means you rotate your die, or your cube. And it's a nice chunky...
It's a character.
Yeah, it's a nice chunky plastic cube. And it's like 3D, so there's like a surface, like a sculpted surface, like a face and feet and arms on the different sides of the cube. And so if you go forward, you have to tumble it forward, so rotate it forward. But if you go left, then you tumble it left, so different orientation. And then whichever side you wind up on dictates the next type of action that you're able to take. So some of them are just like slide orthogonally or move diagonally or jump over a space. And as the game progresses, you can increase some of your skills. So instead of sliding 1, now you're sliding 2 or 3. This looked really interesting. Very different. And so by the end, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm very interested. I don't know that I'm $56 interested, or realistically, if I was going to do this, I'd probably do the deluxe.
Oh, yeah.
For $75.
It's got miniatures, Sean.
Well, it's got cubes.
They're cubicures.
Yeah, it's... this is a hard one for me at this price level. This is something where picking up at retail down the line probably would definitely happen. This is, I mean, I like to spend like $20, $30, $40 at most on Kickstarter.
Unless it's Cool Mini or not.
Yeah, or Lisboa.
Okay.
But yeah, so it looks really good.
It's got interesting mechanics, that's for sure. And an interesting concept, an interesting conceit with these cube-shaped characters that as you manipulate them, you take different actions in different ways. It's cool. It's cool for sure.
I feel like this could be such an AP nightmare. Because you're kind of like looking at and there's a huge spatial awareness because you have to understand like, okay, if I rotate this, it's going to make this available. But it looks really solid. I'm pretty excited for this. I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on it though, but we'll see. It does end January 3rd of 2017. Ooh,
yes,
crazy.
The distant future,
indeed. And it hasn't quite met its funding goal, but it probably will. It's at $50,000. Of its $60,000 goal.
Yeah, right in that range. Right. So it should get there.
Yeah.
You would think.
Oh, that should get there for sure. So who knows? Maybe I'll throw in $75 to help it reach that goal. I don't know. Probably not, but it looks really good.
Check it out if this sounds at all interesting to you, because at least visually, it's definitely interesting.
Definitely.
That is Quodd Heroes, and that is a look at the news. All right, this week we are talking about venturing out and trying to do your best to please the gods. It's the Oracle at Delphi.
So the Oracle of Delphi, brand new game from our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games.
Oh, that's a big caveat up front.
Yeah, so a little bit of just full disclosure, they're a sponsor of the show, and we're not required to do any reviews, but it is Feld-mas, Alex. Actually, by the time this episode drops, Feld-mas will have been the day before.
The day after Feld-mas.
Yeah, it's the day after Feld-mas, but this is our 3rd annual Feld-mas episode. So we have to review a Feld game, and this is the brand new Feld hotness, so it just makes perfect sense. But I just want to throw that out there, that they are a sponsor of the show.
Yes.
So, all right, well, this is designed, of course, by Stefan Feld. Who else would be designed by if it's Feld-mas, right?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't make any, unless there's some other guy named Feld who's not Stefan Feld. Anyway.
So this, like typical Feld games, this is a point salad game. Oh, wait! No, it's not.
Nope.
It absolutely is not a point salad game.
There are no points in any form or fashion in this game.
There are not. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to achieve these tasks and then be the first one to do 12 tasks, I think it is, and then come back to the center where you all started, where the statue of Zeus is. So you have a ship, and there's all these Greek islands, and you are trying to travel around to pick up certain resources, to drop them off at certain spots, pick up certain statues to drop them off at certain spots, go fight certain monsters, and then also discover 3 of your cities. And if you do all of those things, you're gonna be the winner. So it's a pick up and deliver game. It's a Feld pick up and deliver. Very strange.
And it's a race game.
No, it's a race game too. So very, very different for a Feld game. Now, I'm not gonna go too much into all of this because there is a lot going on. This is on the Feld scale. On the Feld scale. That's hard to say. That was like my 5th time trying to say that. On the Feld scale, this is more, in terms of complexity, closer to your Trajan than, say, your La Isla.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. So the main mechanic of this is you each have 3 dice, and these 3 dice have different symbols/colors, and this dictates what you're going to be able to do. So you put them on your board, and then you spend the dice when it's your turn. So let's say that I want to move my ship. I have a range of 3, and I have a pink dice. I can move to a pink ocean tile that's within 3 squares, or 3 hexes rather. So that's how you move. Now, if I'm adjacent to a location that has a certain resource or statue, I spend the correct dice that matches that resource or statue to pick it up. And then if I want to drop it off at the spot, I have to be adjacent to that spot. I spend a die to do that. Monster fighting's a little bit different. I go fight the monster by being adjacent, spending the die that matches that monster color, and then I roll a d10, except a 0 is not a 10, it's a 0.
Yeah.
Which is weird for a D&D RPG background. And when you fight the monster, you need to roll a 9 or less. If you fail, you spend a favor token, which is something that lets you manipulate your dice, but also get, of course, for fighting monsters. So then you roll again, you need to roll an 8. You keep doing this, it gets progressively easier, but you have to keep spending favor tokens to do it. You do that, you've defeated it. Now, as you complete certain tasks, you're going to get certain bonuses. So, for example, you might get extra favor tokens, or you might get to advance your god markers, which I'll very briefly explain later, or you'll get some equipment cards, which give you some sort of special immediate effect or some ongoing ability that's going to make you a little bit different than everyone else. Or you can get crew, which is also going to help you protect you against certain types of wounds, help you move a little bit farther with certain die results, or turn certain die results into wild results, which is pretty cool. I did mention that there are those god tiles. At the end of a turn, when I roll my dice, everyone else is going to check to see which color dice I rolled, and if they have any of their gods above a certain level, past the starting point on this little god track, they get to move one of them up of a matching color, just the one. And then when they reach the top, there's some sort of immediate bonus that they get. I'm not going to go through all of those, but they're all pretty cool and fairly thematic for that particular god. So the other thing is you can get wounded in this game. I mentioned that before. And at the end of a round, the last player is going to roll the Titan dice. And if it's a d6, if it's a 6, everyone gets 2 wounds. If it's anything less, you compare it to your shield value, which is something you can increase through a couple different effects during the game. And if it's equal to or less than your shield value, you're fine. If it's not, you get a wound. At the start of your turn, you're checking to see how many wounds you have. If you have 3 wounds of one color, you lose your turn. If you have 6 wounds of any kind, you lose your turn. And there are ways to mitigate that. There are ways to get rid of wounds. You just have to. There's a wound management aspect to the game as well. So that's the short way to explain it. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game, a lot I haven't covered, but that should give you an idea of some context for the review. So I got taught this at BGG-Con. Daniel Newman taught this. I played this with Raquel, and I played this with Nicole Hoy from the Daily Worker Placement. And we kind of, Daniel taught us as he read the rulebook, which is always kind of rough, but he did a great job. I've had time to since go through the rulebook. I've heard that there have been some complaints on the rulebook online, but I just looking back at the rulebook, I think it's laid out really well. It was easy to find certain things. I like how Tasty Minstrel does their rulebook, so I didn't have any particular issues with that. So Alex, what do you think so far, kind of initial impressions of Oracle of Delphi?
So, couple things. One, I don't know if it's Delphi or Delphi. I'm going to say Delphi.
I think it's technically Delphi.
Yeah.
But we've kind of Americanized that
for Delphi.
E sound.
Yeah.
Like it's Phi, Beta, Kappa, or whatever. It's technically Phi.
I'm sure there's an actual answer, and I'm sure that's the correct one. I'm going to say Delphi, and I'm sorry if that upsets people.
So when I was learning Koine Greek, like 15 years ago, I'm pretty sure it was Phi. So Delphi.
Fair enough. I'm still going to say Delphi.
Yeah, it's Americanized. That's just kind of how we...
It's just in my head that way.
Sure.
All right. Caveats. Big caveats. Caveat number 1. I did not play this enough to give it an actual score. So at the end of all this, it's not getting an official score. I'll kind of tell you where I'm leaning.
Sure.
but I did not play this enough. If we'd been recording this on a Friday or a Saturday, I probably would have gotten the plays in to do it, but situationally, just didn't work out that way.
Well, Alex, Feld-mas is just such a crazy season. Everyone's rushing around to get Feld-mas gifts for each other, to bake the Feld-mas cookies, that it's just hard to get all your plays in.
To toss the Feld-mas point salad?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. So one play. Second caveat, I can get annoyed on complicated teaches.
Yep.
Especially on the first play of complicated teaches. So my impressions of this are heavily slanted towards, man, I was kind of annoyed being taught this game by Sean.
Yep, you sure were.
And yeah. So, with that being said, I didn't care for this one too much on a number of fronts. And I think there's some legitimacy to what I'm thinking, and some of it might go away with future plays.
Okay.
But I think this is not going to end up on the higher end of Felds for me.
Okay.
Generally speaking. Those are initial thoughts. Components art. Okay. If you're working with a game that's heavily reliant on colors, you probably want to make sure the colors are pretty easy to distinguish.
Most of them are.
Most of them are. Congratulations. But the red and the pink, we had a couple of times, and if you match it by symbol, that works fine. But there's a number of situations where red versus pink comes up, and it's easy enough to mix them up. I almost picked up the wrong thing at a depot, thinking it was red when it was actually pink.
Oh, that kind of confused me, because for me, it wasn't the red-pink components were confusing. It was just the red-pink symbols on the dice were very, very close.
Now, I had a couple of issues on different fronts with this one.
Okay.
I actually didn't have as many problems with the dice. I had more problems with the board itself.
Okay.
In any case, it's gettable because they make them symbols as well in many cases, and it should be easy enough to distinguish for most, but for whatever reason, this tripped us up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely did.
So that's one thing. Card quality's fine.
Yeah.
Pretty good card quality, no complaints there. Boards are solid, good places for everything. I like the fact that you can overlay special ability. You each have special abilities, variable starting powers.
Right, your ships are different.
Yeah, and those lay over the top and work pretty well and show you exactly what you need to do. I tend to think the iconography of this game, for the most part, is pretty clear.
Yeah, it takes a minute to kind of understand, but eventually it makes a certain amount of sense.
There are some areas where it's not so clear, but for the most part, things do make sense as this goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I should say things tend to be fairly clear. I like the statues. I think the statues have a cool look to them, and the symbols are kind of a cool place to drop them off as you're going through the game. So I enjoy a lot of the components. I don't know, at least to me, kind of a bleh kind of overall reaction.
Oh, really?
Though. I like the individual components. I think they make a lot of good choices. But the overall table look to this one, to me, is just not.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't like it so much.
I think it looks great on the table because it's a table hog.
Oh yeah.
The board takes up. I mean, it's these interconnected, semi-random hex pieces, right?
Yes.
And I think it looks really cool. It could be overwhelming, and I think that was probably your feeling at first, like, oh, there's so many options and there's so much going on here.
Yeah.
But I like how it looks on the table. I think they made a lot of smart choices with the iconography, and I think the player boards are fantastic.
I like the player boards a lot.
Because there's spots on the player board for everything you need, and there's little reminders about everything, and tells you where things go. The player aids, I think, were really solid. So overall, I think the iconography, again, once you kind of learn some of what the symbols mean, made a lot of sense. And I think the art was fine.
Yeah, the art was fine for all of this.
Yeah, it's Dennis Lohausen who did AquaSphere. Kind of has a cartoony look to it.
Sure.
Right? And I think it worked well. And yeah, so I was pretty happy with the components, again, and with the exception of, yes, at least the red and pink dice. I didn't have issues with the red and pink components, but the dice were kind of annoying, almost to the extent that I would probably do something about that with the dice.
Yeah.
Just so it's a little more, I don't know, maybe not. It might, who knows? But I definitely agree.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, overall look, it was okay. I mean, it was easy enough to tell where your ship should go at times, which is important. But in terms of the objective tiles themselves, I don't know. For whatever reason, visually, I got lost a lot in this game.
Okay.
And that's a problem for me.
Could it have possibly been due to the fact that we had a gigantic baseball highlights mat underneath?
Yeah, that was a terrible decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys did that to troll me.
Well, no, we wanted a large playmat to play another game when you got there. It's
Right.
the largest playmat, Alex.
Yes.
In the store.
No, it's solid.
Yeah. So it was kind of disorienting because you had all of this art and graphics and boxes from the baseball highlights playmat underneath this, kind of crazy design because there's all these different colors and things like that. So I don't know.
Absolutely possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think generally, though, that may not have totally been it. I think there was something about this that just didn't click with me visually.
Could be. For me, I think it looks around the table, but that's just me.
Gameplay innovation, Sean. So how does this one play?
It plays really well. I don't like pick up and deliver games. I tend to not like them. If they're shorter, I might tolerate them, but if they're long, especially like 3-4 hour games, I tend to not like them. And I'm not very good at them either, because I'm not, for whatever reason, that kind of logistics skill set, that logistics intelligence is not something that I have. I can't plan out my route necessarily in the most advantageous way. It's just not the kind of game that I'm good at. So when I first heard about this game and I heard, oh, it's a Feld that's pick up and deliver, I was like, oh boy. I was not expecting to be too crazy about this. My initial play at BGG, I was like, oh, all right, this is pretty good. I like this. And then we played again last night with that first game with you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm liking this a lot more. And then we actually wound up playing immediately after. There was a couple that had bought it earlier that day. And they said, oh yeah, we were kind of hoping someone was going to play it so they could teach us. And so Dan and I were both like, yeah, we'll play again. So that should tell you something. And it wasn't I'll play again because we have to review it.
Right.
But it was, I want to play this again. And I like when you are doing things throughout the game that gives you unique special powers. Kemet does that, my absolute favorite game. And you're doing that with the equipment cards and the crew cards. So you're getting some little incremental advantage. I love it when a game does that. And so I like the puzzle of what's the best route to take, which I'm bad at doing. What's the best route to take? Does it matter which tasks I complete first? Do I want this particular equipment card? Am I okay with that going to someone else? Do I need to prioritize this? So yeah, I really enjoyed this gameplay, not just more than I thought, but on its own, I really came to enjoy this. Ultimately, I think it's probably going to wind up at least in the top half of Felds for me. And it's just weird because it's not a typical Feld.
I tend to like pick up delivered and deliver games generally. I liked Zaya a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
That has a pick up and deliver
Oh, yeah.
element to
Yeah,
it. I liked Far Space Foundry, which is kind of a pseudo pick up and deliver.
That's more logistics.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Not as
Straight
much
logistics.
but it has a spatial element to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I tend to like that. I do tend to like that mechanic a lot of times.
You haven't played any of like the Crayon Rail games, have you?
No, I haven't tried that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you play those and then tell me what you think about Pick Up and Deliver?
Yeah, I may not. I may not like it
those are a good litmus, I think, if you like that mechanic. Because anyway.
Well, and here's the thing. For me, it just didn't click. During the play, I was actively not enjoying this. And I was doing pretty well. This wasn't a case where I was getting my teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
I finished in a very close second in this game, played pretty decently. I didn't have fun with it, Sean. I just didn't have fun with it. Part of it is I think there's just a little too much going on. And it just felt like there was a lot of tacked on mechanics. It just didn't feel like it was that elegant of a game in that way. And I like when Felds are elegant, when they have these cool interconnections that you see. And this probably has that to an extent. I'm sure it does. I didn't see it. It just felt like kind of a bunch of stuff slapped together a lot of times. The God component with well, when other people roll, but not you, see if they roll something and maybe you get lucky. I think there might have been too much luck in this one, oddly enough, for me. Fighting the monsters in this case. Well, you might roll ones 6 straight times, and then you burned a bunch of favor tokens, and oops, sorry for you, sorry you're bad at rolling. With not a ton of mitigation, some mitigation there. I don't know. There were things in this that just didn't jive with me.
Okay.
And I like Feld games a lot of the times. This is on the lower end of Feld. Now, I will say, my opinions of Felds can change over time.
Oh, definitely.
Bora Bora, I had a kind of a miserable experience with at first, and then it grew on me. It grew on me in future plays. I got it. The connections made sense. It went from convoluted to, oh yeah, this clicks. It makes sense. I see what they're doing here. In that one, though, it felt like you could focus in one area and do really well. I like Feld games where you can focus in an area and someone else can focus in a different area and someone else can focus in this area and do really well. This has that to an extent, but you're all basically working towards the same goals on the board. Right. So it's less of that specialization in a sense.
It is. That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I think that's definitely true. I would take issue. I mean, all opinions, obviously, but I would take issue with the elegance of it.
Totally accurate opinion.
Yeah,
always.
So, I mean, I agree with you that this is a little bit more on the complex side of Felds, and you would call this convoluted. But for me, the fact that core mechanic of you roll these dice and then you need a certain color to do a certain color action on the board. And to me, it was a very simple match a color. All you gotta do is match colors, and you could spend the favor tokens to manipulate those in a certain order. So it makes a lot of sense to me in that sense. And then all of the other things are just these little incremental things that are very typical of the Feld game. There were things that, like for example, I don't know if you were spending any of your actions, because you could spend, like, I could spend a blue die to move up my blue god.
Sure.
And so at a certain point, you may want to take some actions to move up some of the gods, or maybe all of the gods, to that first level. Because only once they reach at least that first level do they trigger from bumps from other players' rolls.
Right.
So maybe you just have that one god, and you're just waiting for someone to roll blue. But I have 4 of my 6 gods, and I'm pretty much getting a bump every turn.
There's mitigation for some of the luck that's here.
Yeah.
I will absolutely admit that. And that's part of the mitigation that you're talking about.
But I will agree with you that there is enhanced luck, especially in fighting the monsters. It seems weird to me that in the same year this came out and A Feast for Odin came out, which both involve Ameritrash style dice rolling. So dice rolling is no stranger to Feld games. I mean, you've got Bora Bora, you've got Castles of Burgundy, but it's not where value is important. It's just, what does this particular action let me do? I mean, Bora Bora kind of, but sometimes you want low, sometimes you want high. Whereas in Ameritrash games, you need a certain target number. You generally need to roll high. And so this has that with the Titan. So that's a little weird, because you can go in, need a 9, boom, I roll a 9.
I did that every time.
Yeah, your rolls are really high. Or you can go in, and every single time you have to spend 4 or 5 favor tokens to defeat a monster.
And that's no joke. That's a huge difference.
Huge difference. Now, you can mitigate that. You can increase your shield level, which reduces the target number from the get-go. But yeah, that was a little weird to me. Not weird enough that it was off-putting. I don't mind the mixing, the blending of the Euro and the Ameritrash, and this was not a huge element of it. And I actually kind of liked it a bit in Feast for Odin too. So, but yeah, definitely strange. I mean, definitely this might throw off some, hardcore Euro gamers with this kind of luck, this kind of Ameritrash, you need to roll a target number.
It's just a weird blend. Like
Yeah.
that especially was off-putting to me, is fighting those monsters, which is a key part of what you need to do to win the game. Again, you have to do everything on here to win the game. I like the player powers. I think that's kind of a cool upgrade system. I like the cards that add to things. Yeah, and there's some things that work here, but the bigger picture didn't quite come together. I want to bring in Daniel Newman's comment. Daniel Newman had played this game and posted on our guild. He said, I've played Oracle of Delphi twice. I'm a big Feld fan, so I'm not wholly objective. I really enjoy the gameplay, but the endgame leaves a bit to be desired. There can be a bit of a runaway leader problem, and the nature of it being a race means it can end somewhat suddenly. In a high player count, there's a good chance that one person will be just out and running by mid-game. Some of these issues may be first play problems and things that could even out with more experience, but in a time when there are so many games to play, it's tough to have one that requires multiple plays to be good. I currently have 45 games on my unplayed stack, so it's unlikely I'm getting more than a couple plays of any new games for a while. Sean, does this have a runaway leader problem?
Yes and no. I think by definition, if it's okay, yes, the sentiment I agree with. But if it's a race game, you're going to eventually have a leader, right? And a runaway leader. So I don't think it's quite the same as a...
Well, in a point salad game, you can have a runaway leader too.
Sure.
It doesn't just mean it's a race game.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the fact that it is a race game, it kind of lends itself to, yeah, you probably at some point should have someone that separates from the pack. For me, this scratches, if I have a pick up and deliver itch, I don't know that I do, but this would scratch it much more so than most other pick up and deliver games I've played. Much more so, because it feels like a Feld. And that's another criticism I've heard a lot, is that, oh, well, if you didn't know who designed this, if it didn't say Stefan Feld on the box and you had no idea, you wouldn't think this was a Feld. I completely disagree with that. Certainly it's different in that it's not point salad and it's a pick up and deliver game and a race game, but that whole using dice to take actions and being able to manipulate those with the favor tokens and just other aspects of the game, it feels like a Feld to me. Just a very different Feld.
It has some Feld elements to it, that's for sure. I think when you get into the fighting with monsters thing, though, that we keep talking about is weird,
sure.
That feels completely alien as a part of a Feld game to me.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So there are some things here that are Feld-ish, but there are some things here that definitely feel off. Very different from Feld, which is not a bad thing. I like when designers kind of go One of my favorite designers, Antoine Bauza, goes in completely different directions with a lot of his designs, and I think it's cool that there isn't always a hallmark. So I'm okay with that. I don't actually have a problem with that.
Sure.
Theme, Sean.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more thematic Felds. I think. You're sailing around, right? So right off the bat, you're kind of doing something different than you are in your typical Feld. You're not doing some kind of farming or building an estate or whatever. You're sailing around, you're fighting monsters. There are pictures of the monsters that you have to sticker on. So it feels a little bit more thematic than most other Felds. The god abilities, so like for example, Poseidon lets you move anywhere else on the board. So a giant tidal wave picks you up and moves you over. I think it's Athena heals you. Apollo gives you wild. I mean, I don't know that one's necessarily thematic.
There's some thematic connection here.
Yeah, there definitely is. I would say that I'm trying to think of a more thematic Feld. I know you would say AquaSphere.
I would say AquaSphere, although I know the criticism of that one is that there are thematic disconnects, and there are.
Yeah.
But I have narrative experiences. I have like the thematic connection is much, much, much stronger with me, for me, with AquaSphere than it is with this.
Okay.
Just a lot more. I will say I had one kind of moment of narrative connection to this one, and that's when I got the grappling hook ability.
Oh, yeah.
Where I could just kind of like lazy UPS. I could like grappling hook, grab a thing, and then sail close to an island and like launch it. Like, here's your package, whatever.
Instead of being adjacent to an island to pick up and deliver a cube, you could be one space away.
So I had that kind of moment, but beyond that,
and it wasn't a grappling hook; it's a ballista with a chain on it.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's a ship-bound ballista.
Let me live my truth, Sean.
Well,
let me live it. So yeah, I had some moments of that, but I didn't have that broader moment of, oh, I'm sailing the high seas, going after glory and to please the gods, and I don't know. I mean, it's there.
It's a Euro game, and Feld, Alex.
I know, and for Feld, this is more thematic than most.
Okay,
which is, I think, it doesn't fall on its face on, if that makes any sense.
Sure,
it's not athematic. Their theme is there, and there's some connection to it, and it does work in some ways. Can I go back to a second to gameplay?
No.
Just for a quick second.
No, go ahead.
All right.
Why are you asking me? Just
I don't
do it.
know. Well, I'm trying to...
Excuse me, sir.
I'm being polite. Losing a turn in this one. Are there other Feld games where you have that mechanic in there?
No, not quite. No.
Yeah, it's no fun. Losing a turn's no fun. And I get why it's in there. They want to have this mechanic dealing with wounds at the end of each round. You roll a dice. You might get more of these cards, less of these cards. Part of the mechanic is eliminating these cards. Do you think the game probably would have worked almost as well if you just kind of figured out a way to get that mechanic out of there? Losing turns in these kinds of games is no fun. And by the way, you were the only one who didn't lose a turn in our 3-player game of this,
right.
And you finished in like far away last.
Yeah.
So it didn't affect who won, but it didn't help with the fun.
I wasn't far away last.
I know. You were close-ish.
It was like 0, you had like 1, and I had 3.
Yeah, I would have completed my stuff on my next turn. You would not have. Anyway.
It didn't. So in my first play of this, I think I lost 1 turn, someone else lost 1, and the other 2 people lost 2. And sometimes it would just happen, but we weren't working as hard to actively control the wounds.
There's mitigation for it, to be clear.
And you just have to know that going into it. I need to spend some actions to deal with this wounds. And interestingly enough, in doing so, you're not quite wasting a turn. You're maybe salvaging one action or an action and a half in a sense. So it didn't bother me, but I can certainly see how that could be troubling to some people. Because, yeah, that's no fun to just lose a turn. I mean, it's like playing Sorry, like, oh, lose a turn.
And in my case, I wasn't even in a position of danger. I had one thing out there and, draw 2 cards. Oh, they both happen to be the same card. Sorry, you lose a turn.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I could do a ton about that.
Right. And I think you're kind of prepared. You're like, okay, well, I've got 3 cards and I should be fine. Or even 4 cards, I should be fine. And then you roll a 6 for the Titan die. And then boom, now you're at your 6 cards because you draw two cards.
But that wasn't the situation here.
No,
I had 2 wound cards at the time.
I'm explaining multiple cards.
No, I understand.
The multiple situations.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But it's one of those where luck can also be problematic in this one too. In that case, it caused me to lose a turn, something I didn't really have a good way of avoiding.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. There is a higher element of luck to this game than to most Felds. I would agree with that. And that can be troubling for some.
There were just too many things here that bugged me about this game on the first play. And again, in future plays, I might find it's just fine and it all melds together and, the luck's in there, well, who cares? Because there's games like this, Euro games like Above and Below, that have heavy luck elements to them that I don't mind at all. because I'm so engaged with the story, I'm so engaged with the other mechanics. It's lighter on the other side of it. And for whatever reason, this one, like, I was bugged at just about every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to chalk it up to, well, there's baseball highlights, Matt under it was your first play. I'm not going to chalk all of it up to that. There's things here that I think legitimately didn't work for me.
And you were grumpy.
Hey. Maybe I was grumpy because I was playing this.
Nah, you were grumpy.
Okay. So, yeah, that's where we're at with this one, Sean.
So do you want to give this a tentative rating or kind of what?
I will tell you the ballpark I'm in with this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in between a 2 and a 3.
Are you really?
Yes.
Okay.
So, for those who don't know, we have a 6-point rating scale. Goes from 1, poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun, to 6, an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. We'll see if Sean gets quite that high with this one. We'll see. Yeah, I meant, like, game has some merit but has significant problems. Probably closer to that than I am to a 3 of game is okay, not exciting, we'll play in the right situation. I'm hovering between the two. Mm-hmm. I'd like to give it another play before I definitively see. This is not an official score by any means, but just kind of a leaning with a ton of caveats. But that's where my head's at with this one, Sean.
Yeah.
It may be my least favorite Feld.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of one I didn't like as much.
Okay.
Yeah, even Bora Bora, when I wasn't liking it, I saw how it clicked or could click. And this one, there's just so many things here that just throw me off.
Interesting.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I think that after my second play with you, I was probably like, yeah, it's probably a 4. And a 4 is a good game worth playing just all the time, belongs in the duchy. And then when I was presented with the opportunity to play immediately again, I mean, we had put away the game.
Yeah, and then you had to set it up again, which is a pain.
Right. And Dana and I just kind of looked at each other like, we doing this? And I think at that moment I realized, yeah, I really like this game. And after that next play, I was like, yeah, this is really good. And I think what I enjoy too is that I'm not good at this style game. And so I feel like there's a part of me that's able to say, okay, I want to get better. I want to become more efficient. And I want to experiment with different combinations of these equipment cards. And I want to, I feel like there's a lot to explore here. I think there's a lot of replayability. I mean, yeah, you're going to be doing the same thing every game, but you have different starting player powers. You have a ton of different equipment cards to play from. And just the order that you achieve things in will will make your game different than the last one. So I think I'm going to wind up at a 5. I mean, surprisingly, this was one that I was like, it's probably going to be a 3 once I play it, just because I don't like pick 'em and deliver. But I was like, oh, it's better than I thought. And so yeah, a 5, a great game. Will rarely turn down a play of it. This is going to be in the top half of my Felds, and probably a little bit up there in that top half too. Raquel doesn't like pick 'em and deliver. She was surprised that she liked it as much as she did. So yeah, this was a pleasant surprise, and I'm happy to play a game like of this right away. I mean, I can play a bunch of this more. So I think a 5 is a solid score.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it kind of became a pseudo game court, which I think we probably knew earlier in the week. But yeah, we get in game courts with Felds every now and then.
Yeah.
All right, so that is a look at the Oracle of Delphi from Tasty Minstrel Games. Sean gives this one a 5. I don't really give it a score, but if I did, it would be between a 2 and a 3. So there you have it.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double-Take.
All right, Alex. Well, it's time for us to switch chairs.
Yes.
Because now we have another Tasty Minstrel game. This is our look back at AquaSphere, which we reviewed last Feld-mas.
Prior to sponsorship.
Yes.
For folks who are curious.
You gave AquaSphere a 6.
Yes.
I gave AquaSphere a 4. So you loved AquaSphere. This is, at least a year ago, this was your favorite Feld, right? Or Castles.
So I think I said at the time it was my favorite Feld.
Yeah.
It's certainly jockeying back and forth. And when I was thinking my top 10 list, I was thinking about this one in the 10th spot and then Castles in the 10th spot. This was just off my top 10 list this year. Just off of it.
Okay. So yeah, I gave this a 4, which is a good game worth playing. Just all the time belongs to the Duchy. For you, it's a 6. All-time favorite contender for the top 10, and it really was a contender for the top 10. So yeah, I wasn't crazy about AquaSphere. In fact, I haven't played this since the review, which is weird for a Feld. Raquel liked this one well enough, but there seemed to be too much constraint. So this is an undersea adventure where you're on the Sea Lab, which obviously a lot of references to Sea Lab 2021. We actually just watched the Bizarro episode.
Nice.
Last night. Bizarro, I love you. And you are a scientist that's trying to program these robots, you're trying to fight these octopods, and there's this programming track that changes every round, and it gives you a choice of programming one of two of these options, one of two of these actions, but then that dictates which ones are available next turn, and next turn after that. And so there was this kind of constraint there, which typically I would think is something that you wouldn't be crazy about.
No, I think it works really well here.
Yeah, but you're not typically it's almost like you feel powerless. It's like, well, I really need to make sure I get this action down the line. In order to do that, I have to take this other action, which I don't really want to do right now.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that
Tough
much.
decisions. It's tough decisions in this one.
Yeah, but it's like I got to do something crappy to do something I kind of need to do. And for whatever reason, this one just did not click for me. And I said at the time that I'm going to grade Felds on a harder scale. And I think in reality, I just didn't like this game that much.
Yeah.
And that might get reflected in my updated score.
No, it will.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's have a little drama, Alex.
No, you're not that sneaky.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well.
So for me, this thing fired on all cylinders. It's for me the most thematic Feld. And the one I enjoy the most on the theme. I get the disconnects. I know the arguments out there. I don't know. The squid hunting, the running around this lab, stashing the boats with robots, and all of it just works for me. I like it on that front. I like the programming. I think it's really cool that everyone's going to be taking turns at different times in different ways. B, there's a tough decision of when you move this thing here. Do I need to be in this lab to set up this action? Do I need to be here? There's a lot of really interesting, tough decisions in this game, and you can't do everything, and you have to be okay with that. And I am okay with that. I like the crystals that sort of serve as a gating mechanism, that you have to at least get some crystals to advance on the scoring track at the right times. There's a lot going on here, but it's something that comes together and it clicks. And I have played this one since the review, and it's pretty close to a top 10. So, hey, spoiler alert, my score ain't changing on this one. It's still a 6, Sean.
So over on the guild, Chris K, or Ghidorah, says, I've played about 10 Feld games, and I can unequivocally say AquaSphere is not only my least favorite, but I actively dislike this game. First, it's way too fiddly. I realize that you could say the same thing of other games like Castles of Burgundy or Trajan, but I actually enjoy those games. Second, thematically, the mechanisms don't seem to make any sense. Explain to me again why I need to send subs to the other labs, despite the fact that all the labs are connected? Why are we growing crystals in a sea lab? Third, and my biggest problem with the game, the action board seems way too limiting. There might be one action you really need, but the other two are low priority. Considering the number of things you need to get done in 4 rounds, this is too brutal.
But then you have people on my side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Holmes says, playing AquaSphere always makes me feel clever. Unlike some of the other point salad games, this game does not quite play itself. Players constantly evaluate opportunities to marry short-term choices to their strategic goals, plus squiddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm right there with him. It makes me feel clever playing this game.
Ian Kissel says, AquaSphere is one of my absolute favorite heavier Euros, and one of the only Feld titles I enjoy. I like that although there are a million things to do, only a small set of those are available to you at any given time. This allows the game to be sandboxy while still restricting gameplay a bit. I love the theme, even if there are a few thematic disconnects, and love the programming board. He gives it a 5 out of 6.
And John Giblin, sort of in between both of them in a sense. AquaSphere seems to be a tragic story. I like it, but I think I'm in the minority. It's like Kryptonite for tables. You just can't get them to touch.
So, no surprise, Alex. Is it staying at a 6 for you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and drop this to a 3. This is one that I have not gotten to play of in the last year, which we've said before is by itself is not enough to make you want to drop it. But given that it's a Feld and just given the opportunities I've had to play it and have kind of been like, nah, I'm good. It's going to fall to a 3, which is game is okay, not exciting, we'll play in the right situation, and that's true. It's going to stay in the collection just because it is a Feld and we collect Felds, and Raquel would probably,
Oh, yeah, you'd be kicked out of the house.
Yeah, I'd be kicked out of the house.
And we always like to say that Stefan Feld is her, her pass. Is that the term?
Yeah, your freebie.
It's her freebie.
We get 6.
Okay.
And if you're Ross from Friends, you laminate your 6.
I haven't seen the show.
You decide to leave off Isabella Rossellini because you're like, well, she's international.
Yeah, I know. You've heard the story.
I'm never going to see her.
Okay, yeah.
And then she shows up and you're like, well, you're not actually on my list. Anyway, so yeah. Hey, let it be said, each of us have been a little hard on a Tasty Minstrel game tonight.
All right, yeah.
So that's going to do it for our Dukes Double-Take of AquaSphere from Tasty Minstrel Games. It stays at a very solid 6 for Alex, and it falls from a 4 to a 3 for me. This week, we're discussing how to protect your collection from the grubby hands of toddlers and other people, I guess. But first, a quick word about our sponsor. Hey, Hey, Alex.
Yeah, Sean?
Do you know it's my favorite time of year?
What's that, Sean? Is it Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas?
No, it's Feld-mas.
Oh, a Merry Feld-mas to you.
And to you, Alex. You know, our fine sponsors over at Tasty Minstrel Games have a brand new game just in time for Feld-mas from one of our favorite designers, Stefan Feld, Oracle of Delphi. And I got to play this at BGG-Con, and it was awesome.
And this is a pick up and deliver one, right?
It is, and I was surprised to like it as much as I did. That's a great way to spend your Feld-mas. But hey, we don't want to leave everyone out. We want to be inclusive here. Tasty Minstrel also has a reprint of Gates of Loyang from Uwe Rosenberg. So if you want to celebrate Rosenbergica, you can do that with Gates of Loyang.
I guess that's a thing now.
That is a thing. So to everyone, Merry Feld-mas and Happy Rosenbergica.
And check out all of TMG's titles at playtmg.com. All right, so this discussion topic came courtesy of a discussion we had a couple of weeks ago after Choose destroyed one of your games, Sean.
Yeah. So I just picked up Las Vegas. I told the story before on the podcast. But I picked up Las Vegas at BGG-Con. It's a game that has always been kind of sitting in my cart, and I finally pulled the trigger at the Fun Again booth and had a bunch of awesome plays of it. And then Chewy found the box, opened the box. The dice, we're still finding them all over the house. The cards have been mangled. And yeah, so I was a little annoyed. She's been in a kind of a terrible 2.5, especially the last month. She's been very, I mean, it's pretty typical for kids her age, but she's been a lot to handle. And I like that she has an interest in games. I mean, kind of. She doesn't really know, but we have a bunch of like crappy games that we've given her. She just plays with the components. We have a couple hobby games, which she's not quite there yet. I've tried to sit her down, but the whole rules thing is not something that she's interested in. And she will try and get a hold of my games, of the actual games, and we're usually pretty good. And she might have it for like 30 seconds, a minute, and runs off with it, and then someone's after her. But then the other night, or the other day when this happened, someone in the house, who shall remain nameless, thought it was one of her games and let her get into it. So she had free reign of Las Vegas for like 2 hours. So that sounds funny. She didn't actually have free reign of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
That would be cool though.
That would be pretty sweet, but probably bad for Las Vegas generally.
Yeah. So I actually just purchased another copy of Las Vegas. It was on a super discount on Amazon. It was like $20. So I'm like, done. Yeah. And
watch, the next one she gets her hands on is going to be that game again.
Well, things were kind of tense here in the house because I don't really yell or get mad. I was just kind of quiet. I'm like, it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm just a little upset. Just give me a second. And we started talking about like, what are we doing about this game room? Because she wants to be down there, but she can't be down there by herself. And it takes just no time at all for her to get into something.
Right.
So we were talking, used to have like a gate, but she's since learned how to open the gate and she can kind of climb over the gate. I'm like, we're going to build a heavy duty gate. And we were talking about it. We were planning it out. But ultimately we decided not to. We had some other ideas. And ultimately we're just like, you know what? We'll just, whatever. If we need to rebuy a game, we need to rebuy a game. We got some other things in place, but we're some stuff from the guild for suggestions.
So you are not alone in this. Michael Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews, aka Grumsh, says, I had a mint condition copy of a classic game ages ago. My wife's aunt was living in our house for a while and offered to babysit one night. She wasn't paying attention and let them loose in the board game room unsupervised. They opened up a couple games and tossed components all over, but the worst hit was the mint board game that had the board torn into pieces.
Ugh.
As for my tip, my youngest was 2 and he was able to understand how wrong it was and that the games are only open when Dad is present. We also moved their games into their individual closets that they could play with at their own leisure. That was about 6 to 7 years ago, but it worked. 2-year-old's pretty smart and able to understand these things.
So Chewy understands. She absolutely understands. So we'll be kind of hanging out at the game table together. And like I've had her play Quicks with me. I've played Quicks. Oh no, it was Rolling America.
Rolling America.
Right on cue. And I had her roll the dice for me. I said, okay, I'll write it down, but you roll the dice and you tell me what number it is. And she's able to do that. And so sometimes we'll be sitting at the table and just kind of to test her out. I'm like, all right, whose game is this? And she'll go, Dada's. I'm like, okay, are you allowed to touch this? And she'll go, no touch. So she knows, but she just doesn't care sometimes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, she's smart. She's really smart. But yeah, she doesn't care. She's an evil genius, which, I mean, you would think that would be my offspring, so that's fine.
All right. Andrew Mason says, the first more grown-up game I bought for my daughter, aged 4 at the time, she opened it up and managed to fold the board the wrong way, completely detaching that quarter. Disappointedly, I explained how she needed to wait for mom or me to play with games. The lesson seems to have stuck, and at 8, she's now game-punching buddy for him. We still have the game, the board is held together with tape, and it's a default game for my daughter to teach her friends, so having their own games or bits to play with is often the best distraction. We like the Orchard Toys games, which are simple and educational. If all else fails, my default plan for anything to do with kids is bungee ropes.
Wait, for the kids?
I don't know.
Or for the games?
I don't know. Maybe both.
Huh.
Maybe you put shoes on a little bungee cord. She runs towards the game room and then launch back.
Let's do it.
I mean, you had FEMA camp there for a while, so yeah, it could work out.
Yeah. So Scott Sexton had an interesting comment, which is perfectly fitting. I suggest a new strategy. Let the Wookiee win. And seeing she's named for a Wookiee.
Yep.
Good suggestion, Scott.
And it seems like that's kind of the route you're going. Let the Wookiee win.
Yeah, kind of. Sometimes. We'll see.
And Ryan Fried, or Freed, sorry, Ryan, has kind of a similar one. We have a very active 2-year-old. The best defense I've come up with is wait to play games until after she goes to bed.
Yeah. So choose is a late. She gets up late, she goes to bed late, and really late. And it's something that we have been struggling with for months now. Months and months. We have a house guest that has kind of affected her sleep schedule. So yeah. You know what? I kind of like that she stays up late because I work all day and I come home and, I like that she's not going to bed at 7. I'm here for an hour and a half and then she's going to bed. I get to see her, get to spend time with her. We do play our, did I mention this the other week? We have a game that we play. It's with her dollhouse and I have to smell a flower. And I have to pretend it's the worst thing ever, and I make all these different faces, and she thinks it's the funniest.
Huh.
Yeah. And then I'm like, your turn, and she'll do it. And yeah, it's a weird game, but it's fun.
You should see if TMG will pick up that game.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's bad flower smell.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
From Sean, except it would have Sean in its name, because every game you design has Sean in its name.
Sean Flower.
Sean Flower?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
So Ben Coberly says, I keep all my games up high in a closet. I am in bad need of more storage for games. But until my youngest is a bit older, and I can trust my games to be out when we have friends' kids over, in the closet they stay, safe and sound.
And you don't have that option.
No, because there are so many new games coming in and out of the Duchy that our game table is literally that. It is a game table because it stores games now.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It didn't used to be that way.
No, it sure didn't.
But you can barely find space on that game table these days.
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. Not to mention the tons of games down here. But yeah, those shelves are out and about. There's not a good way of protecting them, I don't think. Not easily.
So Alex Berry, the designer of the Trial of Louis Riel, he did chime in and he said box bands, which I don't like box bands. If you use them, that's fine. But I'm like, oh, wait a second. Keep the boxes sealed. Not actually sealed in cellophane or whatever. Although that would be interesting if I had a cellophane machine.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh boy.
Hold on. No, but what I did, so box bands.
So you can make fake mint condition games.
Yeah.
Great. This is a terrible idea.
Well,
Don't get this.
So when I worked at the first game store when I was 16 at the mall, PV Mall game days, we were actually encouraged to take a game home, carefully read through the rule, open it up, read through the rule book, and then we come back and we'd reseal it, which is kind of weird. Kind of weird that.
A little shady.
Yeah, a little shady. But they wanted us to learn some certain games. Anyway, so I went out. Nope, that's a lie. I went onto Amazon and I bought additional Hugo's Amazing Tape, which I've probably purchased 3 or 4 of these. That's that clear plastic tape that only sticks to itself.
I think I've seen it.
You had to have seen this on a bunch of my games.
Yes.
I usually use this for smaller box games where the boxes don't stay on tight enough. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to start wrapping every single game. Every single game is going to get this treatment because I have a hard enough time finding where the tape starts because it's clear that hopefully she'll have an equally hard enough time. If it gives us just 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes to get to the game, to save the game, Alex, that'll be enough. So that's what I've been doing.
So I should say for my part, generally, I don't have this problem.
No, because you don't have games, you don't have children.
Well, I have games.
Well.
And I have a closet that they can all fit in.
Yeah.
Not that easily. I mean, reasonably easily. I do occasionally have animals over every now and then, but yeah, for the most part, I've not had any problems ever. So, yep. So
to provide a little bit of a different perspective about protecting, because we kind of, I guess we Did we expand the topic a bit to just talk about protecting games in general?
I mean, kind of.
Kids or pets are from other irresponsible adults.
Yes.
So kind of taking a different look at things, our buddy Chris Holmes says, my board games are much less important than the people who play them. The proper destiny of any board game is to become damaged through use. I provide safeguards against wear and tear to help my games provide decades of enjoyment, but I never get unhappy when accidents happen.
Because Chris is a better person than us.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, well, I have a solution for now, Alex. Hopefully it works. Hopefully, I just need it to get us through maybe another 6 months, I think, and then I think she'll probably be a little bit nicer to the games, and she'll want to start playing her own hobby games, or even if she can help play a game, like if she's sitting on my lap or something, and like, okay, move this piece here. So yeah, we'll see.
You'll get there. It'll happen.
All right.
Yeah, little gamer. She's just growing up.
And that's the thing. I don't want to discourage like a love of games. I mean, she doesn't have a love of games in the sense that I would, because she's not playing the games, but she at least sees the components and the pieces and the boards and the cards, and they hold a certain amount of interest to her. So I don't ever want to push her into gaming, but I certainly don't want to discourage it either.
Maybe she was just giving Las Vegas a bad review.
I don't know.
You ever consider that?
How can that be, Alex? Have you played that yet?
I've not.
You still haven't played it?
I hear it's something I'll like.
It's super good.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right, that is a look at our discussion topic. But before we go, the rest of our top 6 names for this episode.
This was an interesting week because a lot of people kind of went with Feld stuff because it's, of course, Feld-mas. And I think it was pretty solid. So what do we got, Alex?
Matthew S. came with Felder sign. So little Elder sign, Oracle, Delphi.
Yeah.
Delphi. Man, even I can't pronounce it consistently in the same show. But yeah, that was clever. Well done. I like that one.
Yeah, liked it a lot.
Name Father, Steve O'Rourke with Jinglefeld Rock.
Mm-hmm, very good.
That's the Jinglefeld Rock. All right. Eugene / Matthew. So Eugene came up with the initial one, and then Matthew came up with the edit because he was just on fire this week.
The assist.
The assist, for sure.
Yeah, if you're going to use like NBA Jam's references.
Oh my, he's on fire.
See, I know something about sports.
NBA Jam was awesome.
Oh, it was super awesome.
Great game.
I've probably spent like $50 in quarters playing NBA Jam over the years.
Well, I have it for my Genesis.
Oh, well, it's better than the arcade.
No, Genesis is rocking.
All right.
Rocking. And they made an updated version for the Xbox.
Yeah.
Really good, too.
Oh, I might check that out.
A lot of fun. Yeah. So, yeah. The suggestion, though, was The Life Aquatic of Bodie McBoatface.
All right.
And the Bodie McBoatface reference, I think there was some poll to name a research vessel, and Bodie McBoatface was the top receiving vote, but they didn't go with that for whatever reason.
No, because you don't open up things to internet polls.
Yeah, don't do that. Bad idea. Royce Calveri came with a really clever one. So instead of octopus, Octopithia.
Yes.
And Pythia reference to Oracle.
Yeah, the Oracle of Delphi was Pythia.
There you go.
And also from Battlestar Galactica, too, because they had a bunch of Greek references.
Haven't seen it.
Do you still haven't seen it?
I saw the first episode, and that was it. Like the movie-length one.
Yeah. It's.
And then they took it off Netflix.
Oh, they took it off Netflix.
Yeah, that was the problem.
Yeah, I offered to let you borrow it.
Well, yeah, I don't have a DVD player at this point.
Computer. Anyway, moving on to our last one. Our buddy Rob Rouse from Blue Peg, Pink Peg, Slippery When Felled.
Yep.
I like it.
Couple of water games makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So.
And it's kind of gross too, but oh well.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that's going to do it. I would just say a quick reminder, it is the end of the year. Board Game Geek is doing their annual drive to kind of help support the site. And if we reach a certain threshold, we get a bunch of bonus Geek Gold, which I turn around and give out to our members, to our guild members, to get name badges and such.
And if you name a certain number of episodes, you get a special badge too, right?
Yep.
Oh, nope, you don't. That's not a thing?
Shut up, Alex.
Okay, sorry.
I have to redesign. Remember, our micro badges for episode namings were rejected by the groupthink over at BGG. They're like, no, these are horrible. You can't tell what they are. And then they actually said, wait a second, how did your actual one get approved? Because it's also hard to read. And I'm like, nothing to see here. Moving on.
Withdrawn, Your Honor. Withdrawn. All right.
But anyway, if you've got a couple extra bucks and you want to go support BGG, which is a big help to us for resources and also for our guild, I spend a lot of my day over at BGG. No, that's not true. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 123. Holy Diver. Go ahead, Alex.
Holy Diver.
There you go. So let's go have some Feld-mas eggnog and try and avoid any Feld-mas mistletoe to stand under. We don't want that to happen, do we, Alex?
I do.
Oh, all right. Well, until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Merry Feld-mas to all.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded on December 22nd, 2016. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest to the Dutchie, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games and Meeple Realty. Check out all of TMG's titles at PlayTMG.com. And for high-quality board game inserts, check out MeepleRealty.com. Meeple Realty, think inside the box. We'll see you back here in 1 week. Until then, game on! All right, so during Glux,
Yeah.
the friendly Shoggoth voice accidentally came out, but I was like cursing someone for covering up one of my pieces. So I think we determined that was the friendly Shoggoth's angry brother Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, this is me, Greg, the angry Shoggoth, and screw you, buddy.
How about Greg the Grumpy? Greg the Grumpy Shoggoth.
Yeah, Grumpy probably makes more sense.
Yeah, lots of G in there.
Hello, friends.
What's that called? It's not alliteration, but it's what? Consonants? When you have sounds like not beginning the word, but within the word?
Is it assonance?
Assonance.
Okay.
You're an assonance.
Probably. Hello, friends. It's me, Greg, the Grumpy Shoggoth.
Those were air quotes, by the way.
Hey,
for our listeners out there.
Hey, I don't need your sass. Blah, 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 blah. Give me your sanity.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go.
Swear to me.
What?
I don't know. I just felt like doing a little Batman there.
Okay.
Merry Christmas. Except it's the day after Christmas when you're hearing this, probably.
You mean Merry Feld-mas, Alex?
Oh, yeah.
Maintain the lie.
Sorry, Sean. Stefan Feld isn't real.
Did you see our
He
Christmas?
isn't real.
He is real. Did you see our Christmas tree topper?
No.
It's a Darth Vader helmet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, of course, cool.
Don't choke on your aspirations.
No.